Hey everybody, today we're going to be walking through a full breakdown of the NeQter Labs platform consisting of SIEM, inventory, vulnerability scanning, and our compliance tool. So for starters, we're going to begin on the main page here. Once we log in, we'll be breaking down all of the various areas of the tools as well as settings. We're going to be getting a little deep into things and summarizing others. So for starters, with NeQter, it is provided as a appliance, whether that be a virtual appliance running as a virtual machine or as a physical hardware appliance that we provide as a 1U rack mount. However, NeQter is deployed once it is set up and given a static IP, you can access it through your browser via that IP. You can, of course, in your own routing rules, set up a DNS name for it and access it that way, or you can just use the static IP port 5000. But once we've accessed the NeQter, we land on this homepage here, which will summarize for us a couple different things. So, namely, the version that we're on. As of today, we're on 2.23. Licensing information, underlying information about the host hardware, as well as other things such as vulnerability information, summarized alerts or different events, different potential security plans that are within the compliance area of the tool, and monitors. So with NeQter, we have all of these tools in our platform, but one of the key areas that a lot of people use us for is the Security Information Event Management, or SIEM tool. Some people call it SIM. So that's where we'll start. In terms of SIEM, we're able to pull logs one of three ways. First most being agents. So anything with an operating system, Windows, Linux, Mac, we can grab those logs via an agent. The next method is going to be syslog. So we can pull in syslog or secure syslog right into NeQter. And then lastly, we have a few different APIs that we can leverage, namely Google Workspace as well as Microsoft 365, commercial, GCC, and GCC High. So we can pull all of those in. So we'll start off on the SIEM talking about agents. So getting around NeQter, we have this nav bar on the left. It can be collapsed with icons, or we can expand it out and have the different names here, which is how I personally like to go about it. So we're going to travel to hosts, where we can look a little bit more on what we can pull from an agent standpoint. So hosts inventory is going to include all types of inventoried hosts pulling into NeQter, agents, syslog, or discovered hosts, and we'll get into that a bit later with the vulnerability scanner. So from a configuration standpoint, we'll navigate hosts, agents here, and this is where we can configure different groups to have different configuration settings of different log types that we would like to pull from different sources. Case in point, we create a new group. There's a few different things that we can turn on. Because a lot of people leverage Windows, I'll start off with Windows Event IDs, which is very important when it comes to logging. So, Windows logs here. If we turn this on, we can select different event IDs. Now, one of the things with NeQter is there's hundreds of different event IDs listed out here. If we expand a certain category, like account management, they're all listed out right here, and we can see the number and short description. So we can add, if we just wanted to add one, we can select that. We can add many at the same time, of course. Because we have the numbers in the description, we can also keyword search at the top here. So say we wanted to find that 4723. Well, we just type in here, list it out right there. Similarly, an attempt was made to change an account's password. If we wanted to just keyword search password or, attempt and password, well, it's going to find exactly what we want. So that is all well and good if you know what you're looking for. If you would like recommendations, we have some different defaults that you can turn on. So we're going to click on defaults here, and here's the list. These defaults are tied in, or rather, we referenced a Microsoft article that described here are the recommended event IDs to push into Azure Sentinel. So we said, well, that makes sense, and Microsoft is advocating for it. So we copied the recommendations, including Active Directory monitoring. So if you have a domain controller on-prem or just internally in your environment, you can select that Active Directory monitoring default. So for example, if we apply that, it's going to turn on a bunch. We hit show selected event IDs here. We have a large wall of dozens upon dozens of different event IDs. If we go back to choose event IDs, the other defaults that we have include file monitoring. So if you have a file server and you want to track user access or changes or modifications or deletions or whatever they're doing with files or folders or directories that you're auditing, we can add that. So we hit apply. That's just going to be a subset. That's just going to be a handful right there. Another one that's very important, choose event IDs defaults, PC monitoring. So this is going to be local PC monitoring. So any of your desktops, laptops, most importantly, maybe you're got a smaller environment that may not have on-prem AD, or rather, even if you would like to track local event IDs that don't propagate to Active Directory or Azure Active Directory, we like to turn those on. So apply, save, those get listed out here. Now, the only one that is kind of a NeQter designation is these are recommended, but we put them in their own group and labeled it high volume events because that's exactly what they are. They generate a lot of volume. The things that get turned on involve object access, which is important for file auditing, of course, but outside of that, any object access or these two culprits right here, new process has been created or process has been exited. You can imagine how many processes are created and exited. So that creates a lot of traffic, but we just put that in as a recommendation, but user beware, essentially. So that is how we select those different defaults, or you can choose your own, or if we scroll to the bottom here, we can also add custom event IDs if we'd like to. So that's number one in terms of logs that we can pull in. Now, a few things to mention about the agent. Well, number one is how it's deployed. So when it comes to Windows, there is a MSI installer that we have. Most typically, it gets deployed out via an Active Directory or Azure Group Policy Object or GPO. Now, of course, you can use Intune or really whatever method that you use to deploy software, you can deploy NeQter agent the same way. A couple other things with the agents. They will read what is already there. So if you already have logs, 4 or 6 weeks worth of logs on a server, for example, well, we're going to read that and pull that in. Another thing with the agent is it is read-only. The agents are not being configured to manipulate or alter any of your auditing settings on your operating system. It's informing the agent here, hey, look out for these event IDs. If they're present, read them and forward them into the platform. The agent also sends logs in real time. As soon as it is written, it will be read and sent into the NeQter. And then lastly, the agent caches logs. So if there's ever a loss of connectivity between the agent and the NeQter server, they will cache. Upon reconnection, they will send. So that's everything there with the agent. It's very light because it's read only. It's in sending text files, essentially those event IDs. There's going to be no impact to the operating system it's installed on or your network traffic. Outside of that, there's a couple other things that we can turn on from a monitoring standpoint. We can turn on metrics. So just an example, I'll just close this and go to an active PC right here. Metrics is going to be system utilization metrics. I can track RAM, CPU, disk, network utilization, file system utilization, as well as system uptime. Just really getting a pulse check on that asset. So you can turn that on for or off for any assets that you like. Outside of that, we also support pulling in, for example, if you have a software writing to an audit log file, well, great. You can put that file path in here and track those line changes to that file. So that's everything for Windows, and Linux and Mac are going to be the same. For Linux, we can do audit demonitoring. We have both Debian and Red Hat based architecture agents, and we also do support Macs as well. We can turn all those things on as such. So you create and establish the groups, and then you can move agents to and from each of the groups individually or in bulk. Once we move an agent, it will absorb those settings and start pulling those log types into the platform. So that's everything with agents. I'm going to skip into the logging area just to show you what these logs will look like and then how they get visualized on the dashboards. And then we'll round out what it looks like from the other input types that we have. So we'll jump over here to Discover. So Discover is really going to be, as I call it, the meat and potatoes when it comes to data in the platform. Everything streaming in gets organized into its own index. The indexes are grouped by vendor type. So everything Windows, every Windows OS is going to be unified under the singular Windows index. So all of those different log event types that I just turned on to pull in are feeding into this index here. And I will always have the original raw log in its message field, so the same formatting. So if you, for example, like to look at Windows Event Viewer and those event IDs, well, you're going to have that same format right here. We take those formatted logs, we break them down and parse them out across the different fields and data types to allow us to more easily search and, more importantly, visualize and alert and report on these events. So everything gets pushed into here and then, of course, gets visualized on different dashboards that we have. We have a lot of different dashboards built out for different vendors, such as everything Windows, everything Microsoft, and I'll get into the other inputs shortly, like when it comes to the firewall side, for example, or different APIs. So everything is already broken down and visualized in here, which allows us to click around and filter down or get clued into certain, whether it be outcomes or users or severity levels or event types. So that is the three-step process of sending logs in, getting them stored and indexed, and then visualizing them in here. So we will come back to this area, but we're going to jump into the settings area to round out the other input types and the other methods that we have to grab logs and pull logs into the platform. All right, so moving along to settings area here. And now going into inputs is where we can configure the other methods of logging. So right here, it opens up into syslog inputs. So if I want to add a new syslog input, number one, of course, I'm going to go into whatever that source is. So we'll say, for example, we have a Sonic wall firewall. So of course, you'll go into your Sonic wall firewall in its settings, logging or the syslog area, and you will put in the IP of your NeQter, the static IP of your NeQter, and we keep it simple. You'll send it to port 514 or syslog. We also do support ingest from port 6514 or secure syslog. So we'll give this a label of new uh, new Sonic wall, and we'll just put a dummy address in here. And we'll go to manufacturer where we can find Sonic wall on the dropdown. So as you can see, we have quite a few different name brand or major vendor firewalls supported here, or some other ingestion too. Like for example, we support integration with Sentinel-1, the EDR software that sends actually via secure syslog. Or additionally, we are able to pull from CrowdStrike, EDR. Same deal, they have a syslog method of export that we can pull into NeQter. And one other thing I'll just call out here, we do have integration with Prevail that does additionally have a syslog export method. If a vendor isn't listed on here, that doesn't mean that we can't pull those logs in and parse them. We just have tailor-made and parsed support for the ones on this list here. But sometimes you might have something that maybe is a little less interesting, like a switch, where that would just go into this other designation here. We grab those syslogs, pull them into the quote unquote other designation, and we can parse, search, and visualize those logs as well. But we're talking about Sonic Wall, so we'll select Sonic Wall here, hit save, and that is it, the two-step process. So of course, if the it's been set up, that Sonic Wall device has been set up to send, then it will come in here and be green. It will be marked as receiving. Obviously, this one doesn't exist, so it says not receiving right here. So we have an indicator that will designate if something has been seen within 24 hours. We also have the option to turn on down detection so that we can be informed, or we can get an email alert sent to inform you that, hey, we have not seen this input within the time frame specified in the down detection. So that is how we pull in anything syslog. The last couple methods that we are able to grab logs is going to be API based. So again, namely, we support Google Workspace as well as Microsoft 365. So we can grab those different, we can grab that different information. And when it comes to something like Google Workspace, it's a two-step process to essentially you'll be prompted by Google to allow the app use, and you'll get a string that you can put in here to authenticate. For 365, it is a three-step process of going up into your Azure, so going up into Azure AD and creating an app, registering an app rather, creating a secret for that app, and then granting read-only permission access to the activity feed API. That's how we're going to be grabbing those logs. So take those three steps, complete them, come back here and punch in your tenant ID, your client ID, and your client secret, And then you can turn on the different log types that you would wish to retrieve. So we can pull everything from Azure AD events, so anything to do with Azure and login and access and users is going to be tracked. Administrative events as well. We also can grab Exchange as well as data loss prevention events, SharePoint events, and then Microsoft being Microsoft, everything else kind of gets shoehorned into this general events designation. So that's going to be things like OneDrive, Teams, security, a couple other things shoehorned right in there. So I'm sure your eyes went to subscription plan type over here. So enterprise or business, or i.e. commercial, is of course supported. But if we're talking about compliance, CMMC in the defense space, GCC and GCC High are very important. And of course, NeQter can pull from those just fine. If you are an organization where you have elected to maintain your commercial tenant, but then also have an additional separate tenant for a subset of users in GCC or GCC High, we support the ability to pull from multiple 365 tenants. So that's what you can see here. So that rounds out all the methods we're able to pull. We do have support for Cisco Meraki Cloud and Cisco Secure Endpoint, or AMP. We will be adding additional APIs in future, but that's what we're working with currently. So navigating back into the, we'll go into dashboards and then we'll take a detour back into Discover. So when it comes to dashboards, as I already mentioned, we have a bunch of different supported dashboards. Actually, if I click on this dashboard link here, here's our full list. I have everyone turned on for my demo system. If I go into, since we were talking about SonicWall, everything is feeding into SonicWall and being summarized in here. So if you have multiple SonicWall routers, well, you can of course stream multiple routers right in here, and everything gets summarized, either whether it be from a country standpoint or IP or users, is all getting summarized in here. I can click and interact with and manipulate anything that I want to create any filters or do any geographical based queries. I'm actually going to go into, just to show you, so NeQter, we actually use Google Workspace. We don't use 365 as much. We do it for some things. But just to kind of show you some real data, going into this Google Workspace here, we can see our different users and their logins. If there were any failures, any login failures, they would actually be listed right here in this little chart area. But if I scroll down, I can see, again, failed logins, summarized, successful logins. And again, this is the login activity dashboard. I have other dashboards for like Google Drive or administrative events. I have the same thing for 365, whether I want to see admin events or Azure AD events or specifically SharePoint events. Very, very useful information. So I scroll down here, I can see where all my users are logging in. Now, I bet you if I went back a little further, if I go to the top right, we're looking at last 7 days. If I wanted to do last 30 and update here, we have a lot more. Yeah, so we have a couple login failures. And I can see if some of them, so actually, I assure you, I'm not a risky action, but for whatever reason, I think, so I am based actually in Rhode Island, and I had drove up to Boston the other day, and I had some login events in Boston, and this was flagged by Google. So I can see, I'm not typically there, so it flagged it as suspicious. So I can do geographical based queries. So if I wanted to draw a grid, like just draw a square over this area here, it will drill down for me kind of this, let me just fit the data bounds here. I can see exactly where people are logging in from home or logging in from the office. At the bottom of every dashboard, we're going to have the full logs in their entirety broken and parsed down at the bottom. So anytime that I create a filter, and this will allow us to kind of go back to the discover area. So let me do this. Let me filter down for Rhode Island. I want to know about events that are based in Rhode Island. I'm going to, so I'll remove that filter. I'm also going to look at successful logins. We'll add that filter. So there's a couple different ways I can add filters leveraging NeQter here. I can go in and click on a graph or chart. I can go up to the top and select the time with a kind of rigid specific times, or I can draw a square over a timeline, filter that down. We'll go back, we'll reset to 30 days. I can select any of, if there's any drop downs, I can select drop downs. If there's any tables, I can select in the table. But more importantly, I can also do a textual based query up at the top. And I don't need to be an expert in querying. If I have like an email or a username in mind, I can just type that in and search it. So there's my email right here. If maybe I didn't have the full email, or I just wanted to be very quick about it and type in my first, first three letters of my name and put asterisks, well, that will return the same event as well. So you can get very, very detailed if you want to, either in the text-based queries, or in the if we wanted to go into these filters here, I can modify them further. So right now this is toggled. I can disable it, of course. I'll re-enable it. I can have a negative based query, so I can say, you know what, right now I'm looking at Rhode Island. I want to see everything but Rhode Island. So it changes it to quote unquote not. If I go and edit this further, and actually just to show you on the map here, we're in the Massachusetts area, we're in some other states, everything that is not Rhode Island. So if I go up back to the top and I click on this and edit this filter, I can change a lot more. I can make it a list, so make it is one of, and then I can say is one of or is not one of, and then mention Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New York, or just to see if that value exists, if it's present. Has anyone logged in from Rhode Island? So you can, with NeQter, you can be a novice, a low-level user, or using it occasionally, or you can use it from a much more powerful standpoint. You can be a power user of NeQter. Even further, just to show you what some of our power users do, if I go into edit this filter and then click further into edit the query DSL, you can get very detailed. You can go right in and change up the query language here. So what I'm going to do is, just to show you, kind of moving into our next area, we talked about getting logs in here. We talked about having them get listed out and organized in the index area. We looked at the dashboards, how they can be visualized, how we can filter. Now we're going to see what those filters can do for us even further. So we're going to pin this, which means, we really like this filter and we want to take it with us. Now we're going to go to the discover area, and this filter isn't working because we're looking at the Windows index. So we're going to go to the appropriate index. We're going to go to the G Suite index here. So now we have those results because we have filtered down and are in the right index. So all of the login success, we have that highlighted. We can also see particularly, I'm sorry, we have not Rhode Island. I'm actually going to reverse that. We're going to include. So now we have Rhode Island filtered and login success filtered and highlighted, which is nice. Very, very easy to see. We can save this. So I'm going to save this now, new save search. I'm going to save it as successful Google logins in Rhode Island. Confirm. So there's a few things that we can do with this saved search. So saved searches are the backbone of the NeQter alerting and reporting function. So we can click on alerts right here and say, you know what, I actually want to turn this saved search into a alert profile. So we're going to go down to S since it's alphabetical here. Scroll, scroll, scroll. We have successful Google logins in Rhode Island. Now we can set this alert up to have different occurrence thresholds, different severities. Maybe this is a low level, so I'll mark it as a low level severity. Occurrence threshold right now is set up to every time it happens within 2 minutes, I'll be alerted. Well, that might generate a lot of alerts. So I might want to say, you know what? If there's 10 successful logins within 2 minutes or 1 minute, that's a lot. A single user should not have that many, because I'll want to group it by actor.email, which is for Google Workspace. So a user shouldn't successfully log in 10 times in 5 minutes. That's suspicious. Maybe actually that is suspicious. We want to mark it as a high. So I can further say I would like to receive that alert directly to my email associated with my user. Now, when it comes to alerts, and we'll jump to that area in a bit, by default, if I don't receive an email, well, that alert's still going to trigger. It's just going to show up in the timeline area under reports. Otherwise, I can receive or opt in to which emails I would like to get from NeQter for different event types. So that's what setting up an alert from a saved search looks like. I can also furthermore set up a custom report from a saved search. So I do that. I go up over the top here. I hit this play button, and we'll go into custom report. Now, I'm sure you see a lot of these different report types here. These are for the other areas of the tool that we'll get to shortly. One of the ones that help with SIEM or summarize SIEM are going to be the general system report, as well as I'll actually just run one real quick for the last day. Run a report, general system report, summarizing different events on the NeQter. And then the health and maintenance report is more of a detailed support related report, but still helpful nonetheless. But I'm focused on custom reports. So if I wanted to make a custom report, we'll say HTML. We will label this the same: successful Google logins in Rhode Island. And we will look at the last week. Now, we can group this report by, if we wanted from an organizational standpoint, we can group by a particular. Oh, let me select the appropriate save search. So we'll go scroll, go down to successful Google logins in Rhode Island. Great. So if I want to group by a field, we're just gonna create this report as is, just so we can see what we're looking at. We'll do the last day so we don't get too many. So we'll run this report. Now, one thing to note about this report is, since we didn't add any customization, we're getting every single field that is within that that index. So, and how can we prevent that? So I did the last day. We didn't get too many results. We'll run this again. Now, the last week, we got quite a few. So as you can see, we had different users log in. And I might want to organize by that. So that's where grouping comes into play. Grouping by a field. So we'll group by actor.email. So if we run this report again, And I actually think so for this one we need to do it from an Excel spreadsheet standpoint, so it can group and tab at the bottom. So let me do that real quick. Run report, and now I get to save this. Let me open that up so I can show you what the grouping looks like. So we'll grab this Excel and open up on my other screen here, and we'll open it up. So now this is grouped by user. So at the bottom here we have 4 different users that logged in Rhode Island, for example. And that's how the grouping works. Now, additionally, again, I have a lot of results and a lot of data for those results. I might want to make it easier on the eyes for me. So we're gonna close this, and we can organize our reports better in this area right here. So if I expand this, there's a couple ways I can do this. I like to do it this way. You can either use them on the side here where it says available fields, and I can click add. Now what that will do, if I add, it will make columns for me. So I can essentially make my own table. That's what it's going to allow me to do. I personally like to do it from an individual log, so then I can see what types of information that I'm dealing with. So I might like let's see, IP might be good for me. Username might be good for me. Login type maybe. We'll just do login, and we'll do user, and we'll do IP. So I can now, if I make that same report and it cached, so I don't have to do all that work again, and I check this very important, use save search columns. I run this report. We'll do HTML so I can see instant. Run report. So it pulled those two. Silly me. Let me resave this. Resave, confirm save. Go back up over here, and we won't group it this time. Run the report. So instead of everything, I get just the ones that I want to see: events, actor, IP, and the associated timestamp. I might need to add an additional timestamp field to round that out. But that's essentially what the report is going to allow me to do. So now going into the reports tab where I can see alerts. So these summarized alerts are all right here. I can see a particular alert. I can open it up, read the summary, and I can see the log that contributed to that alert. So if alert fires, I can review it on this timeline here. I can dismiss an event. I can filter down and say, you know what, I only want to see high related events, maybe. If I click on this medium here, I click the eyeball to view it. If I click view search, well, it's going to take me right back into the it's going to take me right back and see pinned here. So this is the search. It's taking me right back into the exact index that I need. So this particular was a FortiGate VPN failed login. And now I can see those results summarized as such. So going back to reports. Alerts, they trigger. They show up on here as a summary. Or I can, of course, receive an email that alert transpired. Alerts are configured right here. I can create an alert from a saved search or from a template that NeQter already has built out. Any alert that is configured will get listed out right here, so I can go back and edit them in future if I need to. Reports, we go right here. So there's two methods of how I can create a report, either on demand, much like I was doing, clicking on that play button in the top right corner, or I can schedule a report to be reoccurring. Whether a report is run on demand, and when you run them on demand, I'll just open this up again. I'll just go into this report here. You can email it to yourself. So as soon as it generates, it shoots you an email. Or, of course, if I configure and schedule a new report, so this is the schedule view, and I want it to run weekly, and I want to add in my email or multiple emails to receive this report, I can run it now or set up the schedule to run weekly. And regardless of, so if I download a report and I delete it, or I get an email of that report and I delete it, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I had kept that. Well, the good news is NeQter is keeping it right here. So all those reports that I just ran through, successful Google logins in Rhode Island, I can see all of those results right here. They were saved, they were recorded, they are maintained right here for me to pull up and re-download or just review them. And the good news about that is I can filter and search for a particular report type. So if it's a custom report or one of the various defaults that we have, or a particular format, or if I remove both of those filter types, I can keyword search right here. So if I know one that I would like to see again, like the one I just created, I can search it right here. And that's going to be important. So if we're talking from a compliance standpoint and you want to prove over time recurring important events, such as, for example, recently created users in Active Directory, well, I can set up that report to run once a month. And the reports remain in here as of today. They are indefinitely stored. They take up such little space that we've chosen to store them indefinitely. So if, and we'll get into kind of rounding out the SIEM, talking about log retention, the reports will outlive any log rotation or retention that is set within NeQter. So if you ran a report in February, well, you can find it right here, call it up, and re-download it and show it as a proof point or as an artifact. So that's very, very helpful. So to round out the last area of SIEM, we'll go into settings. And this is where we can establish, okay, well, how long are we maintaining the NeQter logs for? So there's two ways that we store logs. First and foremost is visualize log data. So what we were looking at on the dashboards in the discovery area, all of the logs are visualized logs. So that is what this first setting is right up here. So right now I'm keeping 35 days for the visualized logs. The other method, of course, is going to be archive log data. So it compresses it down, reduces the footprint, saves storage, and by default, the visualized and the archive are retained locally. So that NeQter VM or hardware appliance that you're maintaining, everything is stored locally on that system. Now you can, of course, choose to push those logs off via SMB to a file share. So when you're pushing the file share, the archive is lifted off and sent, and that subsequent storage can now be used for visualized log data. So if you wanted to keep 30 days of live and 180 days of cold archive storage, you can do that. Or if you're kicking it off to an external archive, the only limitation is, of course, the associated storage that you have with that archive. So day 181, for me, those logs will rotate out. Now, the good news is with the archive logs, as long as I have access to them either in a live connection or if I store them somewhere else, I can upload, I can drag and drop them back in here, or if I have a live connect, I can restore those logs back in. I can pick the full day, or maybe I just need to see G Suite events, for example. I can restore that back in. It will, and I'll just do that here. I'll select restore, G Suite login, restoring indices, success. And what it's going to prompt me for next is when would I like to rotate this back out? So I can select the day that it gets removed from the visualized logs again. And you can restore and rotate out and restore and rotate out as many times as you would like. So that is everything when it comes to SIEM. We talked about grabbing logs in from multiple sources, agent, syslog, and API. We looked at how those logs visualize in the discover area and how they get parsed, broken down, and are searchable, how they get visualized in the dashboard tool where they can be parsed and queried and broken down, and then how those filters that we create from our queries can be saved and turned into alerts or custom reports, and that's going to be in the reports area. So moving along, we are going to take, our next stop is going to be the inventory tool. With inventory, we're going to go back to hosts. So this inventory list here is going to be everything that is either sending syslog or, of course, has a NeQter agent installed on it, or, of course, and we'll get to the vulnerability scanner discovering hosts, which we can then add into our inventory. So if I wanted to see an individual host inventory, I can click on the host name here. We'll take a look at the laptop that I'm using currently. So if we click on hardware, we can see a summarization at the top line here of the host name, the operating system, but we get much deeper than that. We can see version, we can see build number, we can see I'm using an XPS, a Dell XPS. It will list out active users, this is my current account, local users that are present on Windows, as well as summarization of all of the other components within the hardware. So I can see a summarization. We have an Intel Core i7 1250U. The number of cores, the speed. If I click on this, it will give me a lot more. I can see the cache sizes. I can see if it's supports virtualization. Same thing with motherboard. It's a Dell motherboard, and here's the BIOS, July 2nd, 2025. If I open this out, I can see the version, the serial number. So there's a lot, and I mean a lot of detail that can be extracted. We can see, again, top-line summarization of the TPM, version 2.0. But I expand it out. We can see the spec version and other things. So we can see that for all components. And if we click up at the top here, software, we can see it for all software. So again, summary view, name, installation date, version. I expand out, I can grab the install date and registry key value and version and everything else for that software. So I have been looking so far just at a singular asset. If I X out of this, I go up to the top here, I can see all hardware within the NeQter inventory or all software within the NeQter inventory. If I go back to this hardware tab, this is going to give me the summarization at the host hardware level. But if I wanted to dig a little deeper and say, I want to know every single graphics card or graphics device within my company, I can click on that, filter that down. Now I can see every single model of graphics card and all of its subsequent device information. And I can do that for all devices. I can also do that for local users. I can do that for file systems or storage drives, and I can see their capacities, utilizations. I can see if they've passed a smart test. There's so much information that I can extract from here. We can also, if we go into software, it's listing out every single software that is present within my enterprise. I can come up here and I can search for something. So if I wanted to look for a Google Chrome software, okay, who has Google Chrome installed? What version is installed? On these different assets, I can see that spelled out. Now, a couple things with the inventory. If we go and we edit, we can add additional data points such as description. I can give a description to this device, an asset tag, a location. There's also dynamic tags that I can add. So if I wanted to say, you know what, in fact, this device is a laptop, that tag was already here. But since we were talking earlier about Rhode Island and this device, if it may in fact always reside in a, say, like a Rhode Island or New York or Texas or California office, I can specify that here. I can say, you know what, this asset is in Texas. I'll add that tag and save that host. And then from a tag standpoint, I can go and filter with those tags. So let me refresh so that tag shows up. I have 6 tags now. I can say, you know what, show me every asset that has the Texas tag. Of course, we only have the singular asset that I just added it to. And additionally, there are a series of reports that we can extract and take from inventory. I can click on the play button and grab a full inventory report. Now, what that's going to do for me is give me a big inventory Excel spreadsheet that includes everything that I want to see from my inventory standpoint. Everything that I was looking at within NeQter, I can extract, grab, and pull, and download a full spreadsheet with everything in here. Everything that I was looking at, everything is located right here. Now, additionally, I will close that Excel as well. I can also make custom reports. So if I wanted to go into, let's just say, hardware, and I wanted to go back to those graphics cards, and I liked this view that I'm looking at, or if I wanted to download particular information, I can make a custom download. So I can say, you know what, I only care about host name, I care about vendor, I care about model, and I care about total virtual RAM, VRAM. Download that, um, save that, and now let me go grab that download, open up Excel again, and it's again only going to give me the columns that I specified. So a lot of customization in NeQter. There's a lot included, a lot you can use NeQter and just use all of the defaults and be good to go. But you can also really make it your own and make your own views, make your own reports, make your own exports. So that's everything to talk about when it comes to the inventory, with the exception of I chalk this up under inventory, but it is kind of its own tool. We do have a light monitoring function, and this is going to allow us to track IPs, ports, or domains for either devices that we have inventoried. So, for example, if I wanted to go to hardware here and I wanted to select the laptop that I'm using, and I wanted to add a service monitor for, let's just say, the IP of the host, I can do that. If this laptop is serving up certain services and I wanted to add those ports to monitor, I can do that. And I can change the monitoring interval and decide, you know what, I would like to receive an alert if this goes up or down or changes. So that's what monitors do. Monitors are not limited to devices that are formally inventoried into NeQter via an agent or a syslog feed. I can, if I wanted to, go into monitors and add a new host and say, you know what, I would like to add google.com and add that as a monitor for availability. We've already done that. I can go and click on Google here, and we're just tracking port 80 to Google, and we can see, has there been any outages? Well, sometimes, in the middle of the night, the ISP will have, we'll change something or have an outage. So actually, I'm looking, there hasn't been any outages detected. But if there were, they would get listed out right here, tell me when they started, when they stopped. So that is the last piece of the inventory with this monitoring function. Moving along, we are going to go to the vulnerability scanner. Now for the vulnerability scanner, there's two ways that we can access it. I'll show you the main way, of course, on this side tab here, the vulnerability scanner. So with this vulnerability scanner, it is a network-based vulnerability scanner reaching out from the NeQter platform. So it is not reliant upon client-side agents. If it can reach it, it can scan it. So that's the rule of the game with the NeQter vulnerability scanner. So I'll go and I'll show you just what it takes to make a scan. So much like with everything else, you can go super simple, super fast, or you can say, you know what, I really need to customize this and make it my own. And you can do that as well. So if I wanted to run an instant scan on a particular IP that I had in mind, I can say, go forth and run a scan on this IP. Just punch it in there. However, the best prescriptive way to build out a scan is by making a new task, and you can specify the what it's targeting, if scan targets, how often it occurs, and how deep the scan is going to be. So if I want to go to scan targets, say make a new one. So once you've created a configuration, you can call it up later. So for example, if I wanted to simply do 192.168.1.0/24, this is going to scan that Class C subnet, all 255 IPs. Now, the scanner allows me to go up to /20. So 4,000 IPs and change, essentially. I can also do anything under that, /23. I can do /28, whatever I want from that standpoint. If I wanted to include CIDR notation, I don't have to though. I can do a range of IPs. So you know what? I'm only going to scan 100 IPs, 0 to 100, for example, and I can exclude different hosts. Most notably, you might want to exclude the default gateway so it doesn't create a large amount of traffic on your network. Now, I do get questions on that, so I will make a little bit of a tangent here. The NeQter scanner, you can customize how many hosts it scans at the same time, how deeply it is inspecting those hosts. At most, I've seen it take up to 5 to 10 megabits per second of bandwidth when it's targeting a certain asset. But it kind of has that roving eye. It moves from host to host. So it looks at one for 30 to 60 seconds with that speed of traffic and then moves on. So in terms of network impact, there's not a lot of total impact unless, of course, you have a slow network or if you don't omit certain gateways or routing equipment, which kind of causes a loop of sorts. So everything always comes down to networking when you are configuring this. Just wanted to call that out. So additionally, you can say, you know what, all these things look good. Or you can say, instead of this list of ports, I want all of the ports. Or all assigned is going to be, of course, all of the assigned ports. If you wanted to do all TCP, you can. It's just going to be 65,000 ports that it's going to scan, so it might take a bit of time to do so, but you have the power and the authority to do that with this. And maybe most importantly, I can do a credential scan, so I can do authenticated checks against SSH, SMB, i.e. Windows, ESXi, or SNMP. So we set that up, we set those targets. Like I mentioned, if you already set one up, you can select it from the drop-down. Schedules, we can say, I want to run this one time. Go at it. Or I can make a new schedule and, keep it kind of vanilla. Maybe I say, you know what, let's do it once a week. And I can specify the time that it performs the scan. Or I can run it once a month. Or from a customization standpoint, I can say, you know what, I want to run this the first Monday of every month or the first calendar day of every month. So it's very, very customizable in how you set up the scanner. Lastly, you can determine the depth that this is going to run at. So full and fast is what we recommend from a monthly standpoint. Discovery is helpful. It's a light scan that discovers to see what is on our network, and that feeds into what I had been hinting at prior, those detectable hosts or unknown hosts. So we set that all up, we hit save, or again, we can run it on demand, and the vulnerability scanner is pulling from the National Vulnerability Database. It is pulling in daily. So it has hundreds of thousands of different NVTs and CVEs it is comparing against. So this isn't just for Windows. This is anything from a networking equipment standpoint, infrastructure, from a Linux standpoint. As you can see, there's some SUSE Linux issues. This one is a high in 8.1. So if a vulnerability is detected, it is going to include all of this information from the National Vulnerability Database. The summary here, for example, is this host is missing an update for a Java package. Surprise, surprise. And it has been determined it's a very, a high in 8.1. Here's all the information about it. Here's what it is affecting. The solution is a vendor fix, which are the best ones to have, so you can get right from the vendor how to fix it. In the reference area here, we can open up this tab and we can go right to SUSE.com. We can see, okay, here's what it is, here's what is affected. Okay, great. How do I patch it? It will tell me right here. So we'll go to a scan that does have some results. We'll go into tasks, we'll go into reports, and we'll see this last scan that ran on the 8th. We can see, okay, well, what did we find? Well, we found some mediums and some lows. I click in, much like that one I was just looking at. It tells me how it was detected, what its impact is if we don't fix it. And this one's pretty easy. I can just filter incoming traffic to these ports, and that will solve for that one. So if I run this scan again, this will be removed. Now, right now it's showing me only hosts that have vulnerabilities associated or ports that were detected to have vulnerabilities. One of the nice things about the Vuln Scanner is I can also grab informational items. So if I wanted to see, ports that have a vulnerability on them are important, but let me see all available ports in my network, well, here's how you can do that. If I wanted to see operating systems present, TLS certificates in use, this is the best way to do that. And it can also show me, from a topology standpoint, the different assets that are within my network and how they are routed, and if those assets have been scanned, how severe are the vulnerabilities on those assets. A lot of wealth of information with this scanner here. You can go even further into customization, changing the configurations of scan profiles and what is included or what is excluded. But ultimately, you run it, you schedule it, it will inform you of vulnerabilities. The other way that I can access the scanner, which is helpful in my opinion, we go to hosts, we go to vulnerabilities up at the top here, and we need to change the time view because this is just for the last 24 hours. So if I do the last month, I can see that scan result in here. And it is cross-referencing the vulnerabilities that have been detected and showing me which hosts within my inventory that they were detected on. I can also view the vulnerability view, so most prolific vulnerabilities. So I can tackle it that way. I can say, you know what vulnerabilities are hitting the most or affecting the most hosts. So I can see that here. Um, so lastly, there are a series of different reports that I can generate for the vulnerability scanner. Detailed report includes everything. Most vulnerable hosts is this view I was just looking at. Vulnerability frequency report is this other view I was looking at. And then one I think that is very important is this vulnerability delta report, where I can see if we'll just run this report and we will save it and we will open it. What this is going to, so I probably need to let me go and make sure I am using the right one here. Demo info and fast. What this is supposed to show me is between now and the last time the scan was run, it will show me what has been added or what stayed the same or what is removed. So if I open up the vulnerability scanner again, it actually shows me a trend for this scan result where this one stayed the same. Another one I had done, this one's just been kind of drawing a line. Things have been the same for this one, but if it goes down or goes up, that will be reflected in the delta comparison report, which will basically be showing me these results, but in a nicer view in that Excel. So that is the vulnerability scanner. To round up, the vulnerability scanner, which is in this hosts area here, it can also inform me about hosts that have been detected. They're not formally reconciled into the inventory yet, but I can discover things. I can see what they are by running an Nmap scan, by expanding this out and seeing, okay, this unknown host is actually another NeQter appliance I have running on the network. I can see which ports are available, its IP, its OS information. I can see that all right here. And one thing I forgot to mention, I'll just circle back on the inventory here. Events will tell me any changes that have been detected or perceived for the different assets. So if I wanted to search and in Windows event logs, but I want to see it from the registry area here. So I can see if a particular host has added a software or removed a software or component or thumb drive. I can see removable drives. I can see that listed out in the hardware area, or printers, stuff like that. So just wanted to wrap up that last piece of the inventory and vulnerability scanner area. Lastly, we will wrap up with the compliance tool. So we will navigate there now. So we refer to it as a couple different things: the compliance tool, the system security plan builder, the system security plan tracker. Ultimately, this allows you to build and track your SSP for NIST and or CMMC compliance. So if I wanted to create a net new system security plan, I can select the framework I want. So we could say, you know what, I want CMMC L2. I can do that. Additionally, I can download a template if you already have a, say, Excel spreadsheet that goes down to the assessment objective level and you like to copy your work into here, well, you can do that. You can download the template and then upload the template here. So we'll go to a CMMC L2 that I was slightly working on here. We jump into the compliance tool, and I'm going to get hit with this splash screen that summarizes a few different things. So we can see the title, we can see the last change, we can see recent actions, revisions, a summarization of SPRS and total responses. Then we see this progress bar here, and finally the 14 domains. So I can navigate a couple different ways. I can use the side nav here. If I want to look at the requirements, I can click view and edit, and they're all going to get listed out right here for me to view. Now, if I go back to this home screen, I can also click right into a domain. So I can go right into access control. I can click on a particular control. So we'll go to 311D. And I can do a few things. So we have the requirement up at the top here. Then we have the assessment objective and its determination statement. We have I'll just collapse all these and expand them out as I explain each one. So number one, up over here, I can give a control a status. So I can say, you know what, we are done with this. This is implemented. I can assign an owner. I can, if it's not implemented, if it's a planned item, I can give it a due date or mark it as needs review. So I'm going to save this. This actually has unfinished tasks, so that's actually helpful because it's saying, hey, you know what? You can't mark this as implemented because you have some tasks open. So I'm actually going to mark this as completed. Then I can mark this as implemented. So that's a nice catch that we have there. We're going to hit save. So probably most importantly, I can write out a description of implementation. Here is how I am meeting this control. So one thing with this, if this were to close and I go, oh my goodness, I lost my work. Well, you actually didn't, because we're caching in the cookie your responses in your browser. So in case this closes accidentally and you didn't save it, you won't lose your work. So we are going to hit save here. We are going to save this. Now, if you need help, like I do, in understanding the CMMC, we have the discussion area, the further discussion, and the assessment areas right from the CMMC assessment guide. Another thing that we do have, and I will get to this a bit later because we do have it on our doc site, which is accessible through the NeQter. You can access our NeQter guidance, i.e. our compliance guide of if we are helping with the control, we will say right here, yes, we are in fact helping with this. Now, particularly 311D, system access is limited to authorized users, the NeQter does not help with that. So we say that we do not help with this. If we did, trying to think of one that we do, yeah, right here. 311C, devices and other systems authorized to connect to the system are identified. We do help with that, and we list that out right here. So we do include that in our own tool. So going back to the one we were working on, additionally, if you want to upload and attach artifacts or documents, you can do so. So if you have a file, and it could be a JPEG, an image file, a PDF, a doc, a text file, you can upload and attach that here. So I'll actually select one that I already have. And we'll hit save, attach. And every time something gets tracked, or rather, changed on here, it will get tracked in the change history. So those things that I just did, changing implementation, changing owner, response, getting changed from nothing to something, and the artifact getting attached, all of that was tracked in this change history. If this is not a done item and I need it, I need to work on it, or I need multiple people to work on it, then I can create a task, assign this to someone, assign a priority, and mark a due date, give details, so I can track tasks. And lastly, if you would like to comment, or someone would like to comment on this control, they can leave a comment here. So that is how each control, and it will track the user, and it will timestamp when that comment was left. So that is how we can pace through and mark practices as done or in progress or what have you. As I'm working through this at any time, I can jump into the export area and generate this draft where I'll get a fully formatted system security plan that has a table of contents that is hyperlinked, and it will also have a list of revisions and artifacts. So I'll get into that in a second as well. I can customize this further. I can say I want to password protect it, or I want it to have a watermark. I want everyone to know it is a draft. It does say draft, or if we have a revision, it will say that at the bottom and when it was committed. But having a big old draft watermark will definitively let me know that it is in fact a draft. There are different options here. I can include or exclude if I want the SPRS scoring listed, if I want the appendices listed, if I want things included or excluded, or a description, or change the color if I wanted to. I can do all of those things. Now, when it comes to revisions, we're going to go back to the home page here, and we'll actually just start with this management area. We'll click on artifacts. All artifacts that you upload will get listed out here. You can upload artifacts to this list and then bulk add and edit them to multiple controls at the same time. Additionally, you can export this list of artifacts. Artifacts will also, when they are uploaded under a particular revision, will get versioned under that revision. So basically frozen in time. When you uploaded the artifact to that revision, it will get included in the rev and can be exported in a compressed zip file. So speaking of revisions, I have different revisions listed out here. And as I mentioned, you can download those artifacts, or I can export the revision when it was committed. So if I click on that, this is just going to take me right back to the export area. And if I generate this revision, it is going to tell me two things. One, when this revision was committed in the past, and when it was generated and saved off of here. So I can also, again, see the revision listed at the bottom here. Going back to the revisions area, I can see all changes listed for each revision. So if there was something and then something new, I can see the before and after. If I go and I create a new revision, I can mark it as a major or a minor. I can give it a description, which will show up in that appendix. And again, so the different changes, if I go to 311D, which I changed quite a bit, I can see, okay, it was not implemented and now it is. It did not have an owner and now it has me. I can see the response was blank and now it has this. And before I had no artifacts and now it has this artifact. So I can write those descriptions down right here and add that description to the revision, which will get listed in the appendix in the report export. Now, any tasks that I create are going to get listed in this poem area where I can export the list of tasks in a poem export right here. So I can export this list and save it off. And that is everything from adding stuff and exporting. Now, a couple loose ends to tie up. There is a settings area if I need to change the owner or change the name of this or delete the SSP, I can. If you accidentally navigate to this area and press delete, it will not delete. You have to then go through checks and balance to further make sure that you want to delete. All of this information, however, is saved within the NeQter configuration backups. So if you're running backups of NeQter, which you should, and you accidentally delete an SSP? Well, you can reclaim a backup. Of course, you'll be frozen in that moment in time of when that backup was committed. So if you're not running routine backups and it was weeks ago, you'll lose a week's worth of work if you delete it. But of course, if you're backing up every day, then the most you would lose is a day's worth. So going into the home page area here, one last thing that is helpful within the tool is, so this dial, -197, not a great score. I can click on it and it will give me a full summary of all of the different controls and assessment objectives and how I'm doing. So I need to meet each assessment objective under each control in order to get the points of the DODAM scoring for CMMC. So if I get all of these, I will gain a point. So just to illustrate, let me go into this one quickly, and I'll say, you know what, this one is done, and this one is also done. Good job. So if I go back, we're -196. Hooray, we gained a point. So I can use this view to filter down and say, okay, let me tackle all the 5s first. I want to really make a dent. Or whichever ones have the most objectives completed or implementation status. So there's different views you can filter and apply. There's also a lot of filtering and applying that you can do within here in terms of who owns it, does it have a response, is it marked as needs review, etc., etc. And lastly, just like everything else, there is a series of reports that we can generate just for the compliance tool. A compliance change report. So if I wanted to run it on the one that I'm making right now, and we did the last day, I run this report. Here are all the changes that we both witnessed together. If I look at this other one here, compliance task report, I can see, okay, what are all the tasks that people need to do and who are they assigned to? I can also say, I only want to see myself or multiple users. And as always, I can email this to myself. And then lastly, a succinct summary of the SPRS, we call it our SPRS scorecard report, which will summarize for me at the domain level how I'm doing against CMMC. So that is everything from a major tool standpoint. Looking at the SIEM, we looked at the inventory and saw hardware and software and changes for inventory. We looked at the vulnerability scanner and looked at how to create scans, scan results, how to report on them, and how to filter them and obtain, of course, most importantly, solutions to vulnerabilities that have been identified. Now I'm remembering, one thing that you can also do with the vuln scanner is add and apply overrides. I might take a look at that real quick as we wrap up. But then we also looked at the compliance tool, and we saw we can create multiple types of SSPs for example, NIST, CMMC level 1 and level 2. And we can track our progress and export a full formatted system security plan for those frameworks. Now, we'll just because it's top of mind, jumping around a bit, go back to the vulnerability scanner just to emphasize, if there is a vulnerability that you have found and it is on a system that you would like to accept the risk for, you can click into that vulnerability and you can mark it as an override so that you can say, yes, I accept this every time it happens on any host or a single host, on any location or a single location, i.e. port or other criterion, and we can create and save that override, and then we can apply overrides when we're reviewing a particular report. So if I click into this one here, I can see that actually there's no override showing up for this one, but if there were, I would say yes, apply, so I don't see them in my report. And they don't get lost. They get nicely categorized under scans, under overrides. So I can see listed out all of the overrides that I have created, where they apply, and any notes that I added to them. So bit of a jump into the back into the vuln scanner, but I know people have questions on that. So to truly wrap up, we're going to just navigate into settings, look at a couple different things that might be important. We talked about log retention, but in this backups area is, of course, like I had mentioned, how to set up backups for the tool, which will include all configuration settings and data, so I can restore if I ever need to. There's also the ability to add, as I mentioned, if you are restoring a archived log file, it will show up in rotation exceptions here, which is beneficial. You can upload and attach or create certificates for the NeQter. You also can include your company information. Dashboards will get turned on by default when different integrations are added, or you can turn them on or off at will. Inputs we already looked heavily at. License information is purely that, checking for the license. The log tuner is something that assists the SIEM tool, where the best example for this is if you would like to pull in logs from something, but maybe not visualize them, because visualized logs are large log files and they take up storage. An example I use for this is if you are doing file auditing and you want to tune out your backup utility or service account, for example. So the logs are retained and are still searchable and discoverable. They just won't get visualized in the dashboard area. Going into mail, you can sync up SMTP mail relay. By default, NeQter has a built-in local mail server, but of course, those would probably end up in your spam with whatever you're using for your mail. So you would like to, or rather need to, set up SMTP mail relay, so then you can tie it into your existing mail, so it's basically authorized, and you can customize the subject prefix, so then you can filter out NeQter inbound messages, whether they be alerts or from the system itself. Networking, you can of course configure domain, and from a hardware standpoint, there's a couple interfaces on the hardware that we provide. If you're setting up a VM, you can of course associate any number of virtual NICs to the NeQter tool. And so NeQter can sit between multiple VLANs or communicate with multiple VLANs however you choose to configure and set it up. From a support standpoint, you can initiate a remote support session, or of course you can send in tickets. I'll review that kind of to end on. Time, setting up NTP to synchronize. So you can specify an address in here, a pool or a server, and make sure you're all aligned and synced up on the same NTP source. Updates, very important. The NeQter will never automatically update. It will inform you that there's an update available. It checks daily to ensure, or actually every time it loads the page, it will check to see, do you have an update available? If there is an update available, it will say, you have an update available, version XYZ. And you can either initiate the update then, or you can schedule it. And NeQter will download that update, restart, and be good to go from there. Everything is in place upgrade. No need for the end user to interact at all. And that is at the software level, the underlying operating system that NeQter includes. Everything is unified within that update process. No need for intervention from the end user. And speaking of users, or rather, we'll just put a pin in that, I want to emphasize there is an ability to upload and add offline updating. So if you are setting up NeQter in an enclave or in an air-gapped network, you can download the update files and then move them over and manually drag and drop and add those update files in case your NeQter cannot communicate outside. Now moving to users to end. So with users, you can of course create a local user or synchronize via LDAP currently. So then you can have domain users access NeQter. If we set up a local user, of course we select admin. Admin gets everything. That gets everything on the side nav here, including settings. Read and write users can get access to everything with the exception of settings. Or you can say, you know what, this user only needs to access the vulnerability scanner, or only can access hosts, or the discover and dashboard area, or compliance for read write. Read only users are limited to just accessing compliance or the discover and dashboard tab. So you can have multiple different user types at different permission levels for different tools. Additionally, for users, you can set in the login banner message right here. Auto logout, you can configure and set the time delay, or you can also set up MFA. Currently, right now with NeQter, we support email passcode from NeQter with MFA. That's the single method that we support, which is why setting SMTP is so important. So all told, that is everything when it comes to NeQter. Lastly, I will end on discussing support, which is base support is included in all licensing. And from an informational standpoint, if we go up to the top right here, and we have a couple buttons up here, the reports. We have this little helpful resources link for a documentation, agents, and submitting a ticket. However, the best way to do that is going to be the documentation flyout right here, where we can submit a ticket via a form, or you can submit a feature request right here as well. If we click on this guy here, setting up support mode, if we need to assist you with a remote support session, we do not have direct access to anyone's NeQter. You need to reach out to us. We set up a remote support session, and then we enable support mode if we need to get access to NeQter, restarting or shutting down the box. And then, of course, you're changing your password or logging out. But to truly end here, we're going to open up this documentation site, which is a small feature. It's one of my favorite features. It's going to open up for you wherever you're viewing currently in the tool. So we're on the home page. It's just going to give us the home page of the doc site. If I go to the compliance tab, it will open up to the compliance tab. Whatever I'm looking at right now is anchored to that area of the documentation site, which I think is pretty neat. And lastly, I showed in the compliance area the NeQter guidance responses. Well, those are all tidied up right here in the compliance guide, which is on our doc site. This doc site that I am showing you is an embedded version of our doc site that is available at docs.neqterlabs.com. So this was a very, very in-depth demo. I usually take an hour, but I wanted to walk through every single setting and button. I probably missed a couple, but the majority of the functionality was displayed on this demonstration today. If you have any questions, we're always available to answer, and we will continue to make some more consolidated videos or shorts highlighting different features or capabilities that I highlighted today. So I appreciate everyone's time today, whoever viewed this, going through all of the aspects of the NeQter Labs platform. I hope you enjoyed viewing the demo today, and look to talking to you further about use of the NeQter Labs platform. Thank you.